So we're going to talk about the range Gitz to consider and why they're considered. So you have Lootas. The reason you want Lootas is obviously they can get the orders to get hitting on fives once they actually move. So they're not hitting on sixes like some dorks. That's on mathematically equal to getting sustain. But keep in mind that they do have an 8 rerolls just from looking at objectives. We do appreciate that they're 24 to 48-inch range, so they can actually sit back and take angles of fire and not really be up in the way. And what really happens here is that there's usually like a mech, like we spoke about earlier, that maybe is now out of range of other people to give orders to. The Ludas might be one of those units that stays kind of back around and is close to someone who's a solo character. They don't need to be taken with a character. You can take a 5-man or a 10-man with a SAG, without a SAG, and still find utility in this detachment because you're giving them +1 to hit. Kind of it's your preference on how many. You could take 2 10-mans and 2 SAGs. And the flash get rerolls. You can go that heavy in your shooting. That's about as much as I would suggest, but you can also go less than. Then, of course, you have flash kits that are just the premier unit in this detachment. Keep in mind, if you read the enhancements and the stratagems, they describe like bad blood axe tactics, and they did describe flash kit the tactics or freebooted detachment preferences. So that's why it's very obvious that this detachment was meant to favor being cunning and a DACA from the freebooters. So the flash kits are premier units in this detachment. They're already one of our favorite units. Keep in mind they love all these orders, especially if you give them 2 at a time. So giving them +1 hit, +1 strength, and or L health, and any of those, order in any of those combos feels really good. They're great for SWAT teams. We know wreckers have come into play and tank busters have come into play. If you give them a character, they're now a 7-man model unit. Best 5-man unit out there is the Flashgate unit. Shout out to Burner Boys. And then something here to consider is that a 10-man unit, even if he doesn't have a leader, would still get orders. They're still going to have their sustain. They'll still average about 25 to 30 hits. You could pop lethal, and then this is you're shooting at the nearest enemy unit. If you're shooting at for example, T11 unit with a 3-up armor save, if it still has cover, you can still average 6 wounds onto that unit. If for some reason you can catch it out in the open and doesn't have cover, that gets even sweeter. And it's still at a point value that's good enough to get good exchanges out and kill multiple different units on the battlefield. Help tank busters destroy a vehicle, run up and fight an enemy infantry unit, whatever it may be. Not sure if you need always 10-man units, just saying to be considered. Then you have tank busters. Of course, they can get up to beautiful strength 10 with their war gear and -3 AP up to damage 3, great into 3 wound infantry. The fact that they can get +1 to hit and their blast means that in this detachment, you can actually use them against enemy infantry, right? Their data sheet ability of +1 to hit, +1 to wound is usually only appealing in other detachments to enemy vehicles and monsters. In this detachment, I don't feel bad shooting it to Gravis Marines. Don't feel bad shooting into Terminators. All this stuff is really nice to have in an orc list, especially as people are getting more elite and killy, and even trying to close a distance on them could be your downfall with your more reliable damage 3 or high volume damage 2 units. So as much as I'm not extremely high on tank busters, having 1 unit or 2 could actually really make a difference in the game in the upcoming meta. Of course, the +1 to hit from the actual tactics still offsets stealth. So if you're shooting a bunch of these different stealth armies and detachments, well, okay, you're +2 to hit essentially, and they're -1 to hit. You're just back to hitting on 4s. That definitely matters and makes a difference. And then, of course, this helps you pop or damage transports, like I said, in conjunction with those Storm Boys or with just overall the combined arms factor of this detachment. Normally, orcs have a hard time with transports. This is the one detachment where you can pop them and then also run up and charge them and beat the crap out of them, right? Dreadmouth, usually you're just shooting them and then you might not be able to shoot them again. You just disembark them. In this case, you can shoot them and then possibly charge them. And then, of course, this is with or without leader. You can give him a Big Mac with a shock attack gun. They can get up the addition. He does get the additional AP, and then he does get the additional +1 strength, so he's up to strength 10. And then he does get the +1 if he's minus the vehicle targeting a vehicle. So it feels really nice as well. So any of these units, with or without leaders, and with combination, all function for those reasons stated. You're not wrong for preferring one over the other. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Bear Enough Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. Some more Gits to consider. So we have the Beast Snaggle Boys and the Beast Boss, specifically because those strats that I mentioned earlier, but you need some respect in this detachment. Because you're bringing a lot of smaller units, it also means that some of these units need to hit respectably hard, so enemies don't just simply run you down out of disrespect. Then you have Zagrot Wartsnagger, like I spoke about before, giving him stealth, giving him reroll charges, and just having a big mob of models makes a big difference in the combat matchups where you can just uh, move block people. Matters a lot in maybe Tyranids or monster matchups where people want to run you down and you can just completely move block them with this as well. Force them to chew through it. And then touching gun lines makes a difference. So Zod is quite appealing, in my opinion, this detachment with the WAAAGH changes. Then commandos are just a current meta pick as a whole in Prime Nexus. Check out other videos. We've done a bunch of them about how to use orks. Commandos lead the way. So they help you control the tempo. People can't move block you. They can't hold you in your deployment zone. They can't wolf jail you. Movement wins games. Speed wins games. And these guys kind of help you kind of keep enemies at arm's reach, whether it's because they can't close the distance on you and crash into you, or because they will and you know they're going to run into you, that you can actually make a counter charge on them. Because of the fact that you reroll charges and you have so many Storm Boys in this detachment, it also means that there's a chance that people that want to shoot you can become in charge range more often now too, which is more detrimental to them because you're a little bit more potent in all of these outside of wall activations. Keep in mind a lot of trash units. Like I said, Storm Boys, lots of trucks, a lot of bikers. You could even start seeing lists with multiple individual mechs because as they expand and have more units on their list, that there's more units that they want to give orders to, as you don't want to drip feed orders or drip feed units that have orders to your opponents because then they know what to prioritize and kill. Then you have the 20-man unit of boys. I do think are slowly going to find their way into some people's list. I don't know to what extent they will be, but because they actually have potential to take advantage of those stratagems, that's where I see them being used. Then battle wagons can also find their way onto these lists, but battle wagon kind of universal. Knobs and or wreckers, like I spoke about earlier, you do need to have the respect factor on your list. So though I'm advising trash and these little small units, you do need something that can kind of hold the enemy at bay and really knock their teeth out on the wall. So that's where you're going to need knobs and wreckers. Knobs do appreciate the +1 strength big time, and wreckers can still take advantage from some of the orders, whether it be +1 strength because they can get up to strength 8, which might help against certain demons units. It might help versus against custodians. So it's nothing to be scoffed at. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!